Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. Today I'll be covering the weather for August 22nd of 2023, and currently we have three main regions for severe weather development. However, I likely will not be covering this one in today's forecast, but we will be covering this marginal threat for the western United States from Colorado into Utah, as well as this marginal threat for southern Texas. As for our threats for today, we do have a 2% tornado threat for the southern Texas marginal threat region. As for wind, we do have a 5% for that marginal threat for the western United States, and as for hail, we do have a 5% for that Michigan marginal threat region there. Taking a look at our 7-day graphical tropical weather outlook, you can see that focusing on southern Texas here, we do have Tropical Depression Harold. This was Tropical Storm Harold, and it did make landfall across southern Texas today, which is what's triggering that marginal threat in that 2% tornado threat region for southern Texas. As for Tropical Storm Franklin here in the southern Caribbean, you can see that it is expected to mostly go northward. It is expected to have a path that does go mostly northbound. It is likely not going to pose a threat to the United States at all. And you can see that we do have post-tropical cyclone Gert here. It is likely going to stay somewhere in this vicinity and then die. It is likely not going to pose a threat to really anywhere of the United States. It's likely not even going to move through out of that circle there. You can see that we do have these two areas of disturbance. We do have this 30% and we do have this 40%, and you can see the path of the winds that it is likely going to take. It is likely going to veer to the north and likely not going to pose all that much of a threat to the United States or even come close to the 48 continental United States. So really, we don't really have all that much of a threat to the United States as far as tropics go for this week. However, our main threat for today for southern Texas is going to be this tropical depression or post-tropical cyclone Harold here. Taking a look at our radar Omega model, starting off with our 500 millibars like we usually do, we don't really have to focus on the southern Texas marginal threat, as we already know what is the primary trigger for that. However, we do have this dominating high pressure system across the majority of the United States, more so towards the east. This is expected to control a lot of our weather this week, as well as rise temperatures across the Midwest and possibly parts of the Ohio Valley and Central Plains up to the 110s. That is going to be extreme heat. And if you do live in the affected area, please make sure you are taking necessary precautions and staying hydrated and taking, again, necessary precautions for heat-related illnesses such as heat stroke. However, focusing on these marginal threats for Michigan and the western United States, you can see that we do have, again, this high pressure system with the combination of the subtropical jet and the jet stream to be rounding the western side and the northern side of this high pressure system to trigger severe weather across Michigan and the western United States region. Taking a look at our dew points, focusing on the marginal threat for southern Texas, you can see that we are expected to have some fairly strong dew points that have been brought ashore by post-tropical storm Harold from the Gulf Coast. You can see that we are expected to have dew points that do reach the mid-70s. That is going to allow for some fairly strong instability. However, we aren't expected to see some extremely strong amounts of instability like we would typically see with dew points like this. With ongoing convection due to Tropical Storm Harold, we are expected to see Cape values that are going to be weakened significantly due to ongoing convection. However, this should still be able to support our 2% tornado threat. And then as for the marginal threat for the western United States region, we are expected to see some dew points that are going to be in the upper 50s and low 60s. That should be able to support the possibility of instability up to the 1000s range, which is going to allow for our damaging wind threat. Taking a look at our instability, focusing on the marginal threat for southern Texas associated with post-tropical storm Harold, we do have a lot of instability that is expected to be back behind post-tropical storm Harold. This is associated with wind that did blow post-tropical storm Harold ashore, and a lot of this is going to be back in the wake behind post-tropical storm Harold. So a lot of this instability is not really going to be associated or usable to post-tropical storm Harold. So overall, as of the time of making this, our threat for this marginal threat across southern Texas has diminished significantly, if not all the way, and mostly the threat of damaging winds does stand in the wake of that. So overall, our threat for this marginal threat has weakened significantly back to more of a flooding potential. However, there may be some storms ongoing that could support the possibility of that 2% tornado threat region that could possibly be able to use the instability back behind post-tropical storm Harold. However, overall, our main threat for this marginal threat region across southern Texas has mostly diminished for today. So then if we take a look at the marginal threat for the western United States region, we are expected to have some fairly relatively weak overall instability compared to southern Texas. Instability that would still be sufficient for that 5% wind threat there and some damaging winds, but overall it is more so back in the triple digits and the low 1000s range, possibly getting into the mid 1000s back towards southern Utah. But overall, our main threats for this kind of instability and fairly zonal flow are going to be more so in the 5% wind threat range. Taking a look at the 2% tornado threat for southern Texas, you can see that we do have some fairly strong energy helicity index readings for this particular location that would be indicative of that 2% tornado threat region with the instability that we have and the directional shear that is expected to be associated with post-tropical storm Harold. We could definitely see the possibility of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes associated with storms in this region. A lot of the storms associated with this region our main threats are likely going to be diminished by this time. However, overall, there could be a little bit of convection left in the wake that could be able to use whatever is left over to support this ongoing 2% tornado threat region. So again, we could still see the possibility of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes across this region, as right around this time we would be able to see maybe some 1 or 2 brief tornadoes associated with directional shear and instability that would lead to these energy helicity index readings that again could be able to support the possibility of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes around this time. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator. And if you live in any of the areas that I covered for severe weather for today, please stay weather alert for the time being, and hopefully I will be able to see you guys tomorrow with another forecast.